Welcome to Passionate World Talk Radio. Educate, enlighten, entertain.
Hello, everyone. This is my disclaimer. Any information discussed in this interview may not be the views of the station or the host. Please discuss any information with your primary care physician. This is Betsy Wurzel, your host of Chatting with Betsy on Passionate World Talk Radio, where our mantra is to educate, enlighten, and entertain. Folks, you're going to want to stay tuned to this podcast because I have a very interesting guest with me today who has quite a story that you're going to want to hear. Leonard Lee Buschel is an American publisher. He's a substance abuse counselor and author of HIGH, that's H-I-G-H, Confessions of a Cannabis Addict. He is also co-founder of Writers in Treatment, which supports recovery and the arts, and executive director of REEL, Real Recovery Film Festival, focusing on stories of addiction and recovery. And oh my goodness, do we need that in today's world? I want to welcome you, Leonard, to Chatting with Betsy.
Betsy.
How are you today?
I'm great.
You're great. Go ahead.
No. I'm every day almost. You know.
Yeah.
Earlier today I was in a little bit of a not a quandary, but I was a little bit of the doldrums.
Mm-hmm.
That saying in the world of recovery, you can restart your day at any moment. And
yes.
And so I have, especially since I knew we were going to be speaking. I thought, this is not a time to get stuck in the doldrums. This is the time to celebrate life on a daily basis, because it's only going to happen once, we suspect. And it's the most treasured thing of all.
Yes,
right?
Well, you know what, Leonard, we all get in the doldrums, right? We all have those moments where we're like, you know, what am I doing here? What am I living for? You know, I ask myself that sometimes. And I just, in my own case, I just realized, you know what, life is really short, and I have to make the most of it.
Yeah.
It took me a long time, in my 60s actually, to realize that.
People say that, and I'm thinking, life is short. Well, yeah, compared to the age of the universe, 13 billion years. But to me, I can't remember a time when I wasn't alive. So to me, this thing just keeps going and going and going. This thing called life.
Yeah, I figure we're dead a lot longer than we're alive in a retrospect. But I have to, I'm going to ask you what I ask all my authors that come on, is what motivated you to write your book? Because your book, COVID. You're the second guest that told me that, or the third.
Something I've been working on for years. Originally for my sons. I wanted my sons to have an accurate, interesting picture of who their father was. Not that they didn't see me as they were growing up, but I thought they'd be very impressed if I could come out with a memoir. So I started working on it a number of years ago, and it wasn't until the lockdown in L.A. that I thought, God, if I can't finish this now, you know, there's no restaurants open, can't go to the movies, which I like to do. I better use this time constructively and productively so I can get a positive benefit from it, since it's been so debilitating for so many people. And it seems like, you know, we're just coming out of it. To me, the pandemic is over unless you get sick. But it seems like in L.A. people are rejoicing. I go out and I see nothing but roomfuls of smiles. Everyone is smiling and laughing. I was sitting someplace yesterday morning at a little cafe, and like 3 different groups of people came to the front door, and they were all giggling about something. They were all just so happy to be with each other without masks, talking and joking and it was just like so inspiring, and it was just so positive. And I've seen it for the last basically month now. Just, that absence of smiles for a couple of years, I think would have a very detrimental effect on my mental well-being, and probably other people's too. There's nothing more. I wrote a poem once about having my son, and it was called "It All Started with a Smile." I saw his mother somewhere, and I smiled, and she smiled, and the next thing we know, we had a baby. So that's important smiles are, and I was without them for almost 2 years, it seems. So we have smiling back in our repertoire of humanity, and that I am so thrilled about. So I didn't write the book because of the pandemic, but I was able to take all my notes and all the previous writings I had done and finally focus on making it coherent and funny and interesting, and there's lots of photographs in the book. And from what I hear and from the reviews I've read, it's a real page-turner. It doesn't get bogged down with preaching or complaining. It sort of just sails along. Some people said it sounds more like a romp, but it's a romp with some very scary moments in it. I assure you. And I think people almost of any background or any age would really enjoy reading it because it's got humor and hopefully a little insight. I'm told some people think, oh, that's really interesting, the way you put that or what you said. And so I hope people go to Amazon and order the book. I think if you order Amazon Prime, you'll have it delivered in 8 or 9 minutes.
Wow, that's quick. You had quite a difficult childhood. Your father died when you were very young. That, of course, had an effect on you. Tell us about your background.
I was thinking the other day, if my father hadn't died when I was 3 weeks old, and my mother never remarried, so I grew up without a father, I thought, if my father hadn't died, I would probably be more of a man than I am today. And I started to grieve over that. Because at the time, I didn't realize I didn't have a father because I had nothing to compare it to. And my mother did a great job of raising me and my brother. So we wanted for nothing. I knew in the winter I'd have a new pair of corduroys, and I knew in the summer I'd be going to camp. And I never knew. My mother was very, very, I don't know if she was doing it consciously or maybe she was just brilliant in her own way. She never discussed, the bills are coming, I can't pay a bill, or the rent just went up, or actually we paid a mortgage. So I never knew that other people had more money than me or less money than me. And I think one of the saving graces of my youth was that we lived in the same house for 20 years. So, and we had the same neighbors for 20 years. Like no one moved. and so
right.
The familiarity was very valuable to me when there might have been other aspects of my life that were more chaotic. We never had a car, so I was always on public transportation or my bike or hitchhiking. And that's, you don't think, other people are getting, or have cars. I never thought that. We didn't, and I didn't question it because we managed to get where we had to go. So it was, my mother sort of went a little crazy when my father died because she had me at home 3 weeks old and my brother was 3 years old. And here she was suddenly without a breadwinner and without her husband. And at the time, there was no grief classes. There was no, I don't even think Dr. Spock had his book out yet. But I think she did a great job just being...
That was, it was a different time too, Leonard. You grew up in the 60s?
I started out in the 50s, but I made my bones in the 60s.
Because that was such a different time, when people didn't discuss grieving. There wasn't that competition with children of, they didn't have the designer labels and, the sneakers. It was only, 2 brands? I think there wasn't much to choose from. Everybody seemed like they were in the same situation.
Flyers, if you're talking about sneakers.
Yeah, Keds, that's right. I couldn't remember the other brands. Yeah, so
memory is, considering I smoked pot for 25 years. Really, people are amazed. I don't understand how that. I don't suggest smoking pot every day to anybody, but anyway, as you were saying, it was a different time.
Right, and so they didn't discuss. Feelings weren't discussed then, and people raised children a lot different back then. I know in my house, when you're taught respect, and you didn't cry. You weren't allowed to cry because my father saw it as a sign of weakness. But later find out it's not. Some people are just sensitive. And you have an interesting story in growing up that you hung out with people who they do illegal activities.
Well, gambling. I hung out with a lot of gamblers, some small-time crooks, but no one who ultimately ever went to jail for manslaughter or anything like that. It's like, I called it, it was a tough Jewish neighborhood, and before I went out, my mother would warn me not to get hit by a stray insult. That was about the level of crime that was going on. They weren't really, but they had criminal minds, and they loved the arts, and they loved movies, and they liked literature. So it was the only male influences I had, other than my older brother, who was sent away to boarding school for most of his youth. So it really was the guys at the candy store, not a bar. I never saw anybody take a drink in my neighborhood. When pot came around, that became popular, but I never saw anybody drink or anybody drunk in my family or in my neighborhood. I don't know why.
Yeah.
Why that is. But we did enjoy life. Everybody was happy to be free and not in jail, maybe. I've always said, any day you wake up and you're not looking for a job or a place to live or a good lawyer is a holy day.
Yes. And how did you, if you don't mind me asking, how did you get started on smoking pot? I mean, that was the thing to do, in the 60s. There was a lot of drugs around, LSD, and there was the hippie movement. Were you involved in that, being a hippie and LSD?
I wasn't a hippie, but I was among them. And I only took LSD about 5 or 6 times, because after the last time I tripped, I read a quote by the great English philosopher Alan Watts, and he said, when you get the message, hang up the phone. So I thought, well, I had my half a dozen LSD experiences. I learned a lot, and why should I? And then I hung up the phone and never did it again. I did start doing MDMA, which most people call ecstasy, later in life. And I did like chewing on magic mushrooms for a time. But I never did the LSD again. Be that as it may, but I hear they're using it in therapy now, and it could be very advantageous to people with depression and addiction, and all these new laboratories are studying psilocybin and MDMA and other things. But I did take to pot. I think the first time I smoked it, I was up in New York in the Greenwich Village with my cousin, and suddenly my world went from black and white to color. Maybe that was the grief I was feeling from not having a father for all those years, who couldn't take me out to teach me how to ride a bike or have a catch with me. That scene at the end of that movie, was that movie Field of Dreams? Have you seen Field of Dreams?
I didn't see that movie.
Well, when it ended, I couldn't stop crying for an hour because it was about a father having a catch with his son, and it just killed me. So I didn't have that, and I never got taken to an amusement park. I never got taken anywhere because we had to use the subway and buses. But when I smoked the joint, something happened. It was a mitzvah, if I may use a Yiddish term.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes, of course.
It was fabulous. And it wasn't until a couple years later when I did my first line of cocaine that my life went from color to Technicolor, 3D stereo. It was incredible, and I ended up sniffing lines of cocaine every day for 13 years. Because if I have a feeling that I like, I want to feel that way all the time. And maybe that's one of the signature aspects of having an addictive personality or being an addict or being without a father. That I thought when you had a feeling it was going to stay forever. And if it was a good feeling, you wanted it to stay forever. And I did that, for a long time. It was only when I was sitting at a rehab on a Sunday under a tree that I actually saw a feeling coming towards me. And I thought, uh-oh, here comes a feeling. And heretofore, every time I saw a feeling coming, I would either enhance it with one drug or I would repress it and suppress it with a different drug. Because I always had the kit bag. It's always good to have Valiums and Percodan and vodka and tequila and, of course, marijuana and hashish and then ultimately, ecstasy. But it was at the rehab that I saw a feeling coming towards me, and I started to panic, and I just relaxed, and the feeling came and went. And I thought, wow, that's amazing. Feelings come and go. And maybe that was like the most mature thought I'd ever had in my life up until that time. Because they also found that a lot of addicts have a very childish way of thinking and handling life. And it was very it was just an experience, like, wow. And I wasn't on any drugs. And I thought, wow, you can be on no drugs and handle feelings as they come and go. And maybe if it's a good one, you can nurture it and figure out, why did I have a good feeling? Let's do that again. Let's run around the block again. Let's go play tennis, whatever it is. Let's read more of that book. There are ways of self-soothing that aren't quite as instantly available as drugs and alcohol, but they're there. And isn't that what it's all about, making this this life to me, life is eternal. And it's nice to have pleasant, to make it as pleasant as possible. I guess the catchphrase now is self-care. People
yes.
Self-care. Jesus.
Yeah.
How long did it take for them to discover that caring for yourself was a good idea?
Yeah, that's true, Leonard. And not just like self-care, because I was a caregiver. I also talk about soul, like your soul. You have to take care of your soul, feed your soul so that you are like you feel energized, to do what feeds your soul in a positive way. I think that's, it's so important. And Leonard, you talk about feelings, and I work in a lot of I'm in a lot of caregiving groups. People are so afraid to acknowledge their feelings, to validate their feelings, because they're afraid of being judged. They're afraid, somebody has it worse, so I shouldn't complain. Well, you know what? So it's not a contest. If it's a problem for you, it's a problem. But I think a lot of people, and especially in the time that we, grew up in, I grew up in the 60s, I'm 64, and 70s, that we weren't taught to validate our feelings. We were taught to stuff them down. You didn't talk about it. As my mother would say, it's airing your dirty laundry.
Until the 60s, and I think the great cry of freedom at that time to acknowledge one's feelings was the expression, let your freak flag fly. Don't suppress that musical talent, that artistic talent, that physical talent. Let your freak flag fly. Show the world who you really are, because everyone is a little peculiar in one way or another. Yes. But if you don't mind, I'd like to ask you, lately, what do you do to self-soothe?
That's a good question. What I do is I listen to music that I like, that relaxes me. And during my caregiving days for my husband, I used to put on John Denver. And I used to pretend I was in the mountains or, in Colorado or at the seashore. I did a lot of meditation, and I started to do breathing. And I listened to motivational speakers.
I do
because
too.
I had to get out of the funk that I was in. And I tell people this all the time. There's nothing like a terminal illness to set your priorities straight of what's important in your life. And that's for sure. Like I learned, Leonard, don't sweat the small stuff. If you run late, I don't worry about that. Cashiers will go, I'm so sorry. I go, don't worry about it. Wherever I'm going, it ain't going anywhere. So don't sweat it.
Yeah. No.
I just I feel like if I'm running late, it's not meant for me to be there at that time for some reason. So I don't, that's just, it took me a long time to get to that point, though. It really did.
Well, hopefully that's where the gift of wisdom comes in as you get older. I have a thing where when I leave for an appointment somewhere, I don't look at the clock in my car because I'm going to get there as quickly as I can, and I don't want to keep looking at the clock and thinking, oh, God, I'm going to be late or I'm going to be early, whatever. I don't look at the clock. I get there when I get there, and I drive fast, and I drive recklessly no matter what. So, trying to rush somewhere would be even worse. So I just, like you said, get there when you get there.
Yeah, that's just how I feel. And, in New Jersey, everyone's in a rush. They'll run you right over to get somewhere. Everyone needs, I think, just to relax. I used to work at a preschool, so I tell the kids to just chillax, chill and relax. People get so uptight, and I think that's why, Leonard, that people go on drugs. They want to escape the feelings that they have instead of acknowledging them. So they try to numb it. They numb how they feel. Did you find that with yourself?
Well, like I said, what drugs and alcohol can enhance feelings, or they can stifle feelings. So that's why I was always in control. I couldn't leave my house for the weekend without like at least 6 different substances, depending on, because I didn't know what was going to happen once I was out there. I think nowadays that the world is moving so fast, and there's nothing that can slow you down better than heroin. You know, and I think maybe this heroin phase crises, you know, is partially due to how fast things are moving nowadays. Remember when you had to take a picture and then take the film to a drugstore and leave it there for a week, and then pick up your pictures? And then if you wanted to send them to England, you'd have to get an envelope and a stamp and send them to England, and then they'd get them, you know, a week later. Now I can take a picture on my cell phone, and my friend in England sees it within 15 seconds.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
It's instantaneous.
Yes.
You know, and there's so many more examples of that in society, and I don't think the human being, with its soul and with its spirit and with its brain, I don't think the human brain has changed that much where it can even handle the speed of change. I mean, remember 40 years ago there was a book called Future Shock, where he said people are not going to be able to handle how quickly things are happening in the world and in their lives, and they're going to spin out, and they're going to need Prozac, and they're going to need medication, or they're going to need marijuana, and maybe now it's heroin. You know, it's like just the idea of doing heroin right now is so incredibly frightening and appealing to me that it's scary, because I smoked it a few times in my life, and it tasted like silk, and you were just at one with the universe. Like Lenny Bruce said, whenever he did heroin, he felt like he was being kissed and hugged by God. And you don't get that from walking down to the 7-Eleven and buying an ice cream cone, or going on your phone and looking at Instagram, which could cause anybody to have an anxiety attack. You know, I don't think it's relaxing.
Right, yeah. Yeah, and that's true. And you're having a whole generation of young people that are more stressed out than ever before. Teen suicide rate, depression, because they're so worried about being liked, you know, on Instagram, looking like somebody else. And it's, you know, it's tough out there. What made you go into a rehab, Leonard? When did you realize I have to stop doing what you're doing? Did you have like a aha moment? Like, I better get myself into rehab and stop what I'm doing?
Like a couple lucky coincidences. I woke up one morning and I was very sick and very hungover, but almost not like a drunk hungover, but like poisoned. Like I'd poisoned myself with alcohol and drugs the night before. And I had an appointment that morning to go get a massage. You know, I was living in Marin County, California, just north of the Golden Gate Bridge. And I had an appointment to get a massage at 11 o'clock. I could barely make it, okay? I go in, I lay down, and 5 minutes later I said to the masseuse, I said, hold on, I have to go outside for a second. And I went outside and threw up. And I thought, okay, got that out of my system. Then I went back in. Another 5-10 minutes, I said to her, I got to go outside again. I went outside and I threw up again. And then I said, hey, look, you know, thank you, but I got to go. And I thought, I'm living in Marin County, one of the most beautiful places in the world, and I can't even lay through a massage. There's something wrong with this picture. And I said to myself, I said, this isn't why I moved to California 20 years ago. Something is wrong. And on the way home, I ran into a friend of mine at a phone booth where I spent a lot of time, and the sweat was literally flying. It was July and it was hot, and the sweat was flying off my face onto her glasses. And she said, "You don't look so good." I said, "Well, yeah, I don't feel so good either." And I asked her after a short conversation, because she couldn't talk to me for too long, because literally she had some ice cream that was going to melt because it was so hot. She said, "Look, I got to go home." I said, "Did the rehab you went to have an 800 number?" Because I thought if they had an 800 number, I'd give them a call. And she was the only human being on earth that I knew who went to a rehab. And we ran into each other, and she gave me the phone number, and I called. And it's just a lot of intricacies that I won't go into. I called. I guess I called it, filled out an application on the phone, and at the end of the call, they said, "How are you going to pay for this?" I said, "Oh, well, I do have some Blue Cross from a camera store in Philadelphia that my mother put me down on there." Anyway, they said, "Okay, well, we'll run the numbers, and if we don't take you, we'll find a hospital that will." And then I cursed, which I won't do on the air. I said, "Are you kidding me?" I said, "I'm not sick. I don't need no stinking hospital. I just need a little R&R. I just need to rest." And they said, "Well, we'll call you back." I drove to Big Sur. I was at the bar at the great hotel Ventana, and I got a call on my cell phone, which I had 27 years ago, because being a drug dealer, you had to have a cell phone at that time. And they called and they said, "Your insurance covers this 100%. And I just started sobbing. I started crying because I realized the jig was up. Maybe this was what was wrong with my life, that I was drinking and doing drugs every day. But it's like a fish doesn't know it's in water because it's in water. So I didn't know I was a drug addict and alcoholic because that was my environment. That was my scenery. That was where I lived. That was where I woke up. That's where I went to sleep. I didn't have that what do they call it when you can look at yourself from afar? The introspection. I was devoid of introspection to really see what had happened to me. And like I said, I started sobbing, and I realized I had to do this. I was raising my son at the time, but he was home for the summer, and this was at the end of July, and they said, "We have a bed for you on August 4th, actually August 3rd. And I got my things together, and I drove myself there in my very low-profile Volvo, and I went up to the counter, and I said, "Is this where you check in?" And she looked at me. She says, "No, this isn't where you check in. It's not a hotel. It's a hospital. This is where you get admitted. And now we want to take your blood." So I thought, you're right. It's not a hotel, because they never wanted to take my blood at a hotel. I gave them some blood, and 28 days later, I left, and I've never drank or done drugs ever since.
Oh, that's wonderful, Leonard.
What a miracle!
Yes, yeah.
What else could it be? Every single day for all those years, and then it wasn't anything they said there. It was just that month of I don't know what you want to call it. It's like one moon cycle away from the way I'd been living was all I needed, was to have the trajectory of my life go in a completely different direction. And I've never looked back on that. I consider it a gift, and I can think of the gift as a plant. And it's a beautiful plant, but I do have to water it every day. So that's where, that's where doing the work I do. I publish a weekly addiction recovery e-bulletin, it's called. Goes out to 23,000 subscribers, and every week is very interesting and informative and entertaining about what's going on in the world of addiction, both good and bad. What's with the opiate crises? I just saw yesterday that the author of Dope Sick, a great Hulu series based on a book by Beth Macy, got nominated for 14 Emmy Awards. And hopefully it'll bring more people to that screen to watch that movie, which is based on a book, to see actually what's going on in America and how basically we only have maybe one problem, and it's not poverty and it's not illness. It might be greed. Greed might be causing most of our problems. And I don't know if that's a 7 deadly sin or it's a disease, but it has certainly cost a lot of people their lives.
Yes, that's true. Can you tell us about your Real Recovery Film Festival and how do people see that?
14 years ago, I realized that me and a lot of people I know had never seen some of the classic movies in a movie theater. The Lost Weekend, The Days of Wine and Roses, the great Robert Downey Jr. breakout role, Less Than Zero. So I got together a couple of people, some friends, and we started the Real Recovery Film Festival. The first year was showing a bunch of classic films on 35 millimeter film. That's why it's called REEL, Real Recovery Film Festival. Went over very well. The first night we showed a movie called Permanent Midnight, and the author of the movie and the star of the movie, Ben Stiller, came and did like a half-hour interview on stage afterwards, and that was our start. And then we decided, hey, let's do another one, and let's do another one. And by then we were getting submissions from independent filmmakers from all over the world, and we've been doing it now constantly for 14 years in theaters in L.A., Denver, and New York. Now, of course, the last 2 years we had to go online. So we had our Real Recovery Film channel. So for a week you could watch any of the movies we had at any time. And I think we had about 80 different films, shorts, features, documentaries. And after each film, we either had the filmmaker or a clinician come and talk to the audience. So it was never just show a film, say goodnight. It was always conversation afterwards. It was always interaction. It was interactive, which was great because the audience could ask questions or just talk about how the movie made them feel. And so we pride ourselves on always having audience participation after every film. And this year, if any of your listeners are in the Los Angeles area, we'll be having our 14th annual October 21st to the 27th in October. And there's a website, and we're very active on Facebook, so it's Real, REEL, Recovery Film Festival.org, or just look it up on Facebook, contact us. If you have a film or you just want to come, we'd love to, introduce new people to the event. It's been very successful for a number of years. And like I said, we've been in New York the last 8 years, but we're just probably not going to be in New York this year. The pandemic certainly did throw, my heart went out to every event planner for the last 2 years. People who make a living from planning events that they couldn't plan. Or they could plan, but they had to hold their breath to see if the curve went up or down.
Right. Yeah, that's very true. Broadway was just shut down.
Yes, but now they're back. Now they're back.
Yeah, now they're back. Yep.
Now they're back. movies are back. Comedy clubs are back. Life might be getting back to normal, and I think for me, it's like, God, I didn't realize how much I missed these things.
Right. Sometimes we don't miss what we have until we don't have it.
I had the
for
book
sure.
to work and finish, and I'm so thrilled and happy with how it came out. I mean, it came out better than I had pictured. It's not just a good story, but it's information and it's entertaining, and I try not to do anything in life that doesn't entertain. And since I'm not a musician, I have to be funny or entertain people. Musicians strum people fall over of what?
I enjoyed talking to you, Leonard. I'm glad you came on, and I wish you, I'll use a Yiddish word now, I wish you a lot of mazel tov on what you've accomplished in your life.
Thank you.
And I wish you a lot of mazel with your sales of your book. I know we could get the book at Amazon.com. What is the website where people could get your e-bulletin? Or is that, can they get it at the Facebook page?
There is a Facebook page, Addiction Recovery e-bulletin, and I can help anybody, sign up to be a subscriber. We send it to our subscribers, but it's also a website that changes any week. So if someone has the patience to write down addictionrecoveryebulletin.org, there's a button there that says subscribe. If you like it, check it out, see what it looks like. It's all new articles every week. We aggregate from the leading news sources in the world. Occasionally we also aggravate. And I think people who have any interest in this universe at all, not the universe that they just measured for 13 billion years, but the universe of using drugs, be they socially, functionally, or dysfunctionally. More people became alcoholic and drug addicts during the pandemic than ever. The statistics are off the charts. People didn't have to drive, so they could drink at home and not have to worry about their boss smelling alcohol on their breath or driving home intoxicated. So people had 6 martini lunches at home, and they could smoke 4 joints at home and not just a couple hits on the way to work. So there's really, and hopefully every rehab, every bed is full and there's a waiting list, but it's worth waiting. It's worth waiting for. And if there's people who are, in trouble, there are meetings again. AA went online for 2 years, but now there are in-person meetings, Narcotics Anonymous meetings. Whatever you need, there's a 12-step program for you.
Yes, you are absolutely right. The pandemic caused much distress. People who maybe were in recovery slipped back because they were home and getting depressed. Mm-hmm. There was a huge, I'm a mental health advocate also, there was a huge mental health crisis beyond our wildest dreams during the pandemic. Yes. And all ages are greatly affected. People couldn't mourn. They couldn't have closure. People with dementia progressed more. I mean, it was just, I could go on and on, but I won't. But you're right. And there is help out there. I want to thank you again, Leonard Lee Buschel, for coming on and sharing your story. And I want to say the name of the book again, Hi, Confessions of a Cannabis Addict. It is available on Amazon.com. And, folks, you had sent me your e-bulletin, Leonard, and it's very good. I'm going to take the time to read it, but what I just saw briefly, I thought was excellent. And the information about Leonard Lee Buschel will be in the blog, so please read the blog. that Jeannie White, station manager, writes. And thank you, Jeannie, and thank you for producing the show. And I want to thank Leland Caldwell, CEO of Passion World Talk Radio, for making this all possible. And I want to thank the listeners for listening. And please share this podcast to help other people. This is why I do my show, is to pay it forward. If you are an addict, if you are depressed, if you are having a mental health crisis, please seek help. Help is out there. Talk to your primary care physician. Check your local resources. Check your insurance company, because it's different everywhere. So, but definitely, call your primary health care physician for referrals. And I always say, as I end the show, is please be kind, because we need kindness in this world. And Leonard, I can't thank you enough for being, that's so courageous for you to write a book and come on and talk about your life, your experiences. And I do wish you much mazel, which means luck, for people who don't know. And I just hope that your book is a huge success. I really do.
Thank you so much. I'm no longer in the doldrums, thanks to you. Thank you.
You are welcome. And I just want to thank the listeners for, listening. I just want to tell people, when you share this show, it's not for me to gain fame. It's to pass it forward. People think they're all alone in the world, and I want you all to know you're not alone in the world. A lot of people feel the same way, but they won't say how they feel. There are resources. There's people to help you, and that's what I want the world to know, that you're not alone. You don't have to go through a struggle alone. There are resources, and there are professional people to help you. And I know what it's like to feel alone, and I know what it's like to not have support. So that's why I do the show. It's in my husband's memory. Sure, go ahead.
On July 16th, the new phone number, 866, I'm pretty sure it's 866,
yes,
is a suicide hotline, just the way we have 411 and 911, and I believe it goes live on July 16th. So if anybody's feeling that despondent, give it a try. I'm pretty sure it's 816. Hopefully it'll be on every television station and every newspaper and every website that the government has finally stepped forward and put together a staff of people to have a national suicide hotline.
Yes, it is 866. I'll double check before I put it in the blog, but yes, I did see that. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Leonard, so much. It's Leonard Lee Buschel, Buschel is how you spell his last name. And this is Betsy Wurzel, your host of Chatting with Betsy on Passion World Talk Radio. Until we chat again, be kind and be safe. Bye-bye now.
Are you looking for an internet talk radio station for your podcast? Look no further. At the helm of Passionate World Talk Radio are two women that want to provide a spot for you and your podcast to be heard. There are many other places for your podcast, but PWTR has the audience. You will not be disappointed. Our station has been on the internet for the past 16 years. Call us for more information. 484-364-1032 or text Jeannie White, station manager, at THECONNECTSHOW@gmail.com for podcast show details. Thank you for listening to Passionate World Talk Radio. You can listen to this program all over again by going over to https://passionateworldtalkradio.com. You can also hear it on Spotify, Spreaker, Amazon Alexa, AMFM247.com, every Tuesday evening between 8 and 9 p.m. YouTube, Facebook, Facebook Live, LinkedIn, and all the other podcast directories one can find on the Internet.